Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Joe Theodore, and welcome to the weekly astrology forecast report. For those of you who are familiar with my reports, you know we kind of just focus on about 3 to 4, maybe 5 or 6 significant transits that are happening in the week. Some weeks, honestly, aren't that exciting, and some weeks are very exciting. So I do my best to try to cover as much as I can, but I'm not one of those astrologers that goes into every little moon transit because, guys, yes, every little aspect of the current time-space reality involving the moon for sure affects everything, but, I have to do the best I can to really kind of hone in on stuff that's, kind of very significant, like some of the more personal planet stuff, the outer planet stuff. This stuff is, very thick and ripe right now in our lives, I'm sure, and in the collective. I'm also going to do my best to not make any analogies and comparisons to things going on in the collective, so to speak, and like the political sphere, because, on the YouTube channel here, I want to kind of keep that to a minimum, but I will talk about much more of that, I'm sure, because it's really unavoidable, guys. I mean, we really are in a very, very life-changing, world-changing time. And I hope all of you understand that when I do talk about politics and things going on in the world, primarily politics, that I'm not necessarily sharing anything from I'm trying my best to be as bipartisan as they say, because as an astrologer, any good astrologer should not interject their personal beliefs and try to be a preacher, for example. And I know some of you guys support one side and some of you support the other side, but I treat astrology as a science because it is a science. Astrology came to be from our ancient ancestors, okay? It is what birthed astronomy. And it was only until the Enlightenment era, when philosophy and science became much more advanced in the, 1800s, then, and even maybe before that, then astrology sort of became a little taboo because everyone stopped believing in God. The Enlightenment era, in a philosophical sense and a scientific sense, was the age of where religion was dying. Okay, so that meant anything that had to do with, divine orchestration, such as astrology. So astrology is a science. It's a symbolic science. And this science trickles into every aspect of our life because astrology is life. Do you see? It is a very non-dual revelation of truth, in my opinion. And it's really those of us who spend the time to observe with an open mind and to learn the symbology of all of this, that only then can we really confirm for ourselves if we think this is real. And more people think this is real, even people that aren't just, New Agers, for example. There's a lot of people in the astrology communities that take this very seriously. And it's always been the case. So when it comes to politics, guys, when I do mention this stuff, it is not coming from a place of, I'm a supporter of this and I want to talk about it from this lens. No, the astrology is extremely complicated, but it's also extremely clear. And there's a lot going on. And as an astrologer and all of my colleagues, we feel we have a purpose at times to really discuss this stuff because it also gives a little bit of, in my opinion, it gives what goes on in the world a little bit of more understanding. Like we can kind of understand, like there's something that's already been destined here for this transformation and transition. And I think when you have great power, you have great responsibility to share and not share. And again, I didn't mean to say that in any sort of egotistical way, but we're dealing with such a revelatory tool that really can dictate so much in the future. We will never know the details of the future, as I always say, but we will know the forms, right? And the forms are very clear, and they've already been manifesting. So as an astrologer, and for anyone interested in astrology, right, and maybe who is a skeptic, when we talk about stuff going on in the world stage, which everyone is aware of, this is what can win people over, right? It won me over, aside from some personal things that I was, in the early days of my astrology when I was reflecting on my own personal experience. There was a lot of stuff going on in the world that astrologers were, discussing with me and saying, hey, like, if you don't believe in astrology, like just check all this out. And after enough time researching and, learning, it became clearer and clearer and clearer that there are things that go on in the world that reflect astrology all day, every day. But there are some moments in history where it is nonstop, where it is so precise and so accurate. And that is a time right now. And astrology, I think, is having its heyday in a long, long time. So this stuff is important, guys. And I would always suggest leave your politics at the door. Just try to understand what the symbolism is. Take it as a neutral education, right? I'm not saying throw your beliefs away, but understand that beliefs are beliefs and that there's a whole bag of ideology and trauma that comes with that too. But as an astrologer, when I do mention things or give examples, it is not coming from a place of any sort of specific interest. So I hope that makes sense. Now, let's jump right into this. We are in Mercury pre-shadow, okay? So this entire week, we have to understand that there are going to be delays and setbacks in the Leo and beginning parts of your chart. Not as bad as when it actually goes retrograde, but like I said in my recent retrograde video, which you can go watch that, I explain what the pre-shadow is. I explain a lot of stuff involving this Mercury retrograde. But it's still influencing, guys. I'm already starting to notice things in my own life. Things are just slowing down. There's just stuff that is sort of like we're starting to feel stuff that's slowing down, right? And again, not to bring the politics into it, but, even with this, everyone is waiting to hear if Joe Biden will step down, right? We're in this weird limbo with that, right? So just imagine that. Like everyone is like sitting on the edge of their seat going, what the fuck is he going to do, right? Like we're all waiting. There's a delay happening. They're not making a decision. So, and again, the Mercury story has everything to do with him, okay? That Mercury opposite the sun was that debate that he did horrible in. When Venus came into Leo and opposed Pluto, right? So Mercury opposed Pluto. Mercury opposed Pluto. That was the horrible debate. Venus opposed Pluto. They started mentioning Kamala Harris more, right? And she started doing her own little speeches around. And I'll get into the sun opposing Pluto because that's part of the Monday story. But we have to understand the Mercury story we're tracking with, collectively speaking, this is Biden in a nutshell. And various other aspects of the political sphere on the Democratic side. Now, the pre-shadow will be happening, yes, until early August. Then it will go retrograde. And then we'll have an integration phase that lasts, pretty much all of August, to be honest. So the Mercury retrograde story will be a month-long journey, a little bit more than a month. And we have to include the pre-shadow and the post-shadow, guys. Because karmically speaking, this is how the whole package works. All right. If you want to learn anything else about retrogrades, I do have 90-minute pre-recorded classes that are very affordable. You can click some links down below and go to my teaching portal. And, I do have a Mars, Mercury, and Venus. All those classes are now available. And it is so important to understand, what retrogrades mean and why they're so important in our life, honestly, even if they turn out to be a little wonky. All right, guys, moving along. There'll be a chart for every day I mention on the screen. So right now we're dealing with Monday. Sun in Leo opposes Pluto in Aquarius. Okay, so every time there has been a personal planet that is opposed Pluto, right? Because Pluto is in Aquarius, which is pretty much dealing with the future of the world, okay? Of course, Pluto in Aquarius has a billion other things that it represents. Again, I just recorded a masterclass for sale that's down below. Click the links to the teaching portal. That's a 90-minute class on the whole 20-year transit, on what I believe is coming and what this is all about, not only for the world, but for you. So every time a planet has been opposed Pluto in the last month, we have seen a major trigger involving, yes, politics, okay, like I just said before. But involving our own life, I feel there has been stuff activating, right? There has been an illumination that has been a little bit painful to deal with. Now, I don't know what's going on in your life or the Leo and Aquarius axis in your life, but I feel we've been getting these short bursts of insight, right, that have been a little uncomfortable, right? I feel like we're getting like little doses of hard truths with Pluto, because Pluto wants to transform you. It wants to, metaphorically make you face something and have an understanding of that particular thing. And when we're dealing with an opposition, we're usually dealing with something that's a little tense, a little bit, it's a struggle. It's a challenge, right? Like Joe Biden had a horrible debate, right? Venus coming in and opposing Pluto, the talk of a serious talk about getting Kamala to kind of step up to the plate. That's a nerve-wracking experience. Like, people don't want to have that conversation. People want to just say, oh my God, I just wish Joe Biden would like do his thing. But no, everyone has known for a long time now that he's getting old and he's probably sick and stuff. So what's going on in our life? There's got to be tension going on in the Leo Aquarius part of your life. Like, I know what it is for me. I'm not going to share it with you. It's a bit personal. But the thing is like those truths get revealed, right? There's something that is going to be, unearthed, and Pluto makes you face something that could potentially even be scary, right? But it's a good scary, because it's almost like, hey, if I didn't know this, then maybe I'd be going down the wrong path, right? So I'm kind of glad for this, revelation from Pluto, this transformational moment. So now that we're dealing with the sun, we're dealing with the light of the sky. We're dealing with the primary star, the life force of our entire existence, of the solar system. So we're dealing with, I believe, a rebirth moment, right? So I feel like whatever problems and challenges and struggle that this opposition to Pluto has been providing for you in your life, and maybe even on the political sphere, right? This sun can almost be like the moment where maybe we start to kind of see what is actually down the dark tunnel. We see the light at the end of the tunnel somewhere. Like, we really begin to become illumined, even if that truth is still hard, even if something is still a little undigestible, whatever the case may be, the sun will be illuminating something. And I feel whenever the sun illuminates something, usually that's a good sign, okay? Because it shines a light on something that was once hidden. Now, I think Pluto shining a light, the sun shining a light on Pluto can be very revealing. So I'm definitely expecting some things to be very much revealed collectively, but also in our own life. And this could be the revealing of the brilliant insight that you desperately have been looking for. This can be just a rebirth moment, in my opinion, even though an opposition is an opposition and it's supposed to be challenging, hard, and struggling. This is a moment where I feel, I'm just kind of getting a vision of the door swinging open and the light shining through, and the light is so bright that it hurts, but it's like a good hurt, So I think this is Monday. Something's going to happen that's a very powerful moment, and it could just be something within you, right? It could just be something that's going on within. It doesn't necessarily have to be something so mega profound, but I think we have to track and map that. Now, Mercury in Leo finishes its square to Uranus in Taurus. So one thing about this week, additionally, guys, as I cruise through, this weekly forecast, is that we are dealing with a few squares, and there's one really nice sextile coming from Mars. So that's at least, inspiring there. But we are dealing with some squares here. So Mercury in Leo finishes its square to Uranus in Taurus. So again, there's going to be a little bit of tension on a very communication level, on information that is being shared, So again, collectively speaking, we can still see a lot of very combative and challenging speech and rhetoric coming from Uranus. And Uranus has had a story in the last couple of months of dealing with very, very, heavy collective situations, going from the college protests for Israel and Gaza regarding the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, and then, of course, Mr. Trump. And there's just so much that Uranus has been doing to really shake up the world. Okay, Uranus literally has been shaking up the world. And having this Mercury square, I think, is just going to be, hey, like, listen, this conversation's not over. We're still going to have these tensions going on. These conversations and the way the media is this, that, and the other thing are very active. And in our own life, again, I don't know what Uranus has been triggering for you in Taurus. But again, when we're dealing with Mercury and Uranus, we're dealing with two very electrifying planets that deal with communication, sudden insight, sudden information. We can even be dealing with sudden issues with communication. And I wouldn't, be surprised. Again, we just had that crazy internet outage thing, that whole thing with Microsoft. This 100% has something to do with this square, right? This is applying, as we speak right now, Mercury is applying the square to Uranus, and we're dealing with massive disruptions with a lot of tech. I'm having, I had a problem today with my car, actually. And we're in the pre-shadow of Mercury retrograde. So there's a lot happening, regarding this type of thing. So Mercury has been finishing this square, right? So all of this stuff that's been going on in the last couple of days with all this tech and all that stuff, this is kind of like the finishing end of that. So, I guess that's a hopeful thing, but boy, have we been in a pretty intense square situation over the last week and a half. I think we can all agree collectively, this has been a massive, wild ride with Uranus. So yeah, I think in the next week or so, we'll see the Mercury story with Uranus calm down, but still we're in a pre-shadow, right? So, we have to really track and map what that's actually going to be, which in your life, it will be in the Leo part of your life, of course. Now, Tuesday, Mars in Gemini supports the Sun in Leo by sextile most of the week. So after the Sun opposes Pluto, right? Whatever is revealed, whatever is, again, whatever tension kind of maybe even gets released, because I feel like the Sun is going to be like a release, like, we're finally getting the power of the Sun shining upon Pluto. And I feel it's like kind of like maybe a final moment where we see the light. You know what I mean? Like we have a final moment of clarity, even though that clarity might be very challenging to take in. But Mars, as the Sun starts moving its way, beginning its journey into Leo, Mars will be providing a sextile from its fresh ingress into Gemini. So again, the Gemini energy, the rhetoric, the communication, the fast-moving news cycles, maybe the fast-moving connections that you're making in your life, or maybe your mind is very activated now. Not that our minds have not been activated all this time, but I think having that sextile is going to support, just things going on in the Leo part of your life that, need to get down to brass tacks. So there are things I believe in Leo for all of us that are supercharged right now. I think there's a lot of activation going on in Leo for all of us, whatever Leo is doing in your birth chart, whatever that house topic is. I could probably bet dollars to donuts that something is very supercharged there. We've had all the personal planets now swinging through. These personal planets have been swinging through all of these zodiac signs together, from Gemini all the way now to Leo. So all the personal planets are in Leo now. Venus and Mercury are there, obviously. We've been talking about that. The Sun is now there. And Mars, another personal planet, will be making a very strong sextile to the Sun. So Mars's influence by sextile, by sign, is going to be activating Leo in every way possible. And I think this is just going to be adding to the stimulus, to the stimulants, to the shots of cocaine that we don't want sometimes, Of course, I'm not condoning drugs, obviously. I'm a sober man here. But I'm saying, like, Mars is going to be just providing the constant energy that we need to move forward, to take action, to have passion, especially when we're dealing with Leo. And yeah, it can be a little too much maybe. But the sextile gives me hope. It gives me optimism that, this energy and passion and action is a good thing for most of us on an individual level. On a collective level, again, sometimes we don't want more energy in an overstimulated political environment or cultural environment, whatever the highlights or the story of the week is, sometimes having a little bit too much Mars energy will cause problems, will cause violence, will cause anger and rage. And I think Mars is just going to continue to provide the double-edged sword that it is, to the collective, and maybe for our own life. I feel, anger and rage can come at a quick, unexpected notice with Gemini, but at the same time, pleasant surprises and pleasant, interactions and communications that kind of just happen, and things can get moving. So, that's what I think, this Mars sextile is going to be, kind of in a nutshell. So I hope that kind of makes sense for you. And then, Pluto's influence opposing the sun is not going anywhere, guys. So until the sun gets to about, 6 degrees, 7 degrees, while Pluto is at 0 degrees Aquarius, Pluto's influence will be affecting the sun still. So again, whatever that story is unfolding, again, there's a transformation happening. There is something that will be shifting and moving and being revealed. And, it's going to be transpersonal and transformative. Now, again, transformation just has to be like an insight of like eureka moment. Like, oh, right, I should do that. Or, oh my God, like this situation, wow, I really need to think differently about this. And I feel like I know what I need to do now. It's kind of like being fed the truth in the hardest way possible and then having to make a decision like very soon and very quickly. So I think Pluto and the sun are going to be like a moment, like I said earlier, where it's not necessarily drastic, but it's kind of like the answer we might have been waiting for when it came to the Mercury opposition and the Venus opposition, right? Collectively speaking, I'm not making any predictions because I don't know what that means, involving the election stuff, but for us, I think this is a good opposition, like I said. So we're going to be feeling that influence all week, guys, whatever that is and however that manifests. Now, Friday is really the last thing I have to talk about this week. I know the following week, there's going to be some major stuff going on there, and we'll talk about that then. But Friday, Mercury enters Leo and provides a loose square to Mars in Gemini. Loose means that it's not exact, obviously. And there's some degrees that are not really making me feel like, oh my God, this is a very harsh event that can take place, right? Because I feel like when we have a harsh aspect, a freshly ingressed planet, and then it immediately makes a hard aspect, or a precise aspect, I should say, usually those get triggered as massive events. Like literally like, boom, here's the event you've been asking for, or you didn't know was going to happen. But Mercury enters Virgo, and then we're only a couple of degrees away from the place where it will go retrograde, right? On August 5th. So Mercury will enter its domicile, its second domicile in Virgo. And this square to Mars just means like, again, the Mercury is going to provide another struggling kind of moment. Where the rhetoric of the way speech is communicated, the way that thought processes, are what's the word I'm looking for? The way that the mind works and the way that rhetoric is being translated. Mercury is still going to provide problems, Now, again, on a personal level, this may not be as catastrophic as what we're going to see on the political level, because this is tracking with every little thing going on with, again, the two people that are up for presidential candidacy. But in our own individual lives, like what is the Mercury square stuff, the Mercury square to, what we were dealing with Uranus for the last week and a half in our own personal life, and now we're going to have a loose square from Virgo. Like what has been going on in your life? I feel like a lot of us might have been getting more headaches. I think a lot of us might have had just a couple, just things that have been going wrong in weird ways where we just got to like problem solve, So for us, I feel like there's been a lot of us in those particular areas of your life where problem solving has kind of been like maybe a normal thing lately. And just things that kind of happen out of nowhere and we have to like fix a problem, use some critical thinking, blah, blah, blah. So for me, like that's what I feel some of these squares are representing. So what's going on in Gemini for you? What do you think Mars being there for you is going to provide? And Mercury will be squaring Mars there, and Mars is in the home sign of Mercury. So Mercury will be communicating with its home sign, its second domicile, with Mars there. So the Mercury energy to Mars will be pretty intense. It'll be pretty activated. So I'm not really sure what advice to give you. Obviously, you would need to book a reading with me, and we would talk about what your Gemini part of your life is, and then we can understand this stuff a little bit more. But I think it's safe to say, if I really want to round this out, is that Mercurial energy is alive and well. Mars is in Mercury's sign. Mercury will go back into its own sign of Virgo at the end of this week, which will only be there for a short while before it retrogrades all the way back into Leo. But there will be a time towards the end of August, mid to end of August through September, where Mercury will be in Virgo. So the Virgo story will be alive and well, as later down the line. So we really have to understand what Virgo is in our life as well, because Virgo, for the first time in a while, will be getting activated. And to have its first major activation be with a square to Mars, a loose square, but still, we're going to feel Mars immediately hit Mercury in the Virgo part of our life, right? So there's going to be an activation there. And again, I just think the best advice, I'll give some advice. Anything that can help you ease a headache, that can calm you down, that could maybe help your nerves out. I usually tell people try to take more baths, or if you can swim somewhere, try to reset the nervous system. Whenever Mercury energy is way too activated, for me, I think anytime you submerge yourself, not taking a shower, but submerging yourself in water can really help. Right? But if you can't submerge yourself in water, anything that can help ease your nervous system, guys, right? Because the mind is essentially the nervous system, okay? And I think whatever problems arise, whatever might come up, whatever may happen in the world that might be stressing us all out. I mean, maybe a lot of this is just, holy shit, the world, is stressing me out. Like I can't avoid and can't, get away from the stuff happening in the world. So what do? Well, finding a healthy balance between what's going on in the world and not over consuming yourself, not getting nuts about maybe your political party or anything going on in that regard, taking breaks, and finding your own version of therapies, holistically speaking, that can help calm your nervous system. Because Mars is in Mercury's sign, Mercury will be going back into its sign of Virgo, for a little while. And, we have a lot of activations happening again with Pluto, the sun opposing Pluto, so we have to learn how to calm down. I think that's really the tip of the week is do everything you can to calm yourself, right? And that usually starts with calming the mind. The mind equals the nervous system. The nervous system will help the mind stay calm. And I think that's really the medicine we need ultimately this week and leading into this retrograde cycle that will be coming within another week and a half. Okay. So that's the video today, guys. I hope this forecast helped. I hope it made some sense. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you stay to the end. Please book a reading with me if you would like to dive deeper into your story. I would love to help you. And of course, if you would like to, expand your own knowledge and learning, check out my Patreon and my teaching portal. Links down below. You do not need to be a member on Patreon to purchase classes. And that's all I have for you. So I'll see you next time, my friends. Much love.